Hello guys, Szwimer speaking. Welcome to LJPCBM episode number 923. And today I'll be at to episode 2 of Finding DW, the first DW. Be at to this begin in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Wow.
Hi, I'm Jason Szwimer, and this is a podcast about my journey to meet 7 male strangers who all have one thing in common with me.
Wow.
We all played the voice of DW, the little sister character on the popular kids show, Arthur.
Okay.
Oh, brother. I know Arthur is always telling you that having a little sister is a pain. But
Makes
look at
sense.
what I have to put up with.
Wow.
This is only the tail of the iceberg.
That's me in an episode called DW's Time Trouble. An
Wow.
episode all about how DW dreams she goes back in time to trick her parents into choosing her before Arthur at the baby store so that she is now the older sibling. The episode aired in November 2002.
Okay.
Welcome to episode 2. We've got so much to get into because progress has been made. In the last episode, I got into what this show's about, a bit about me and my background. If you haven't heard it yet, I encourage you to go back to listen. It'll give more context to what's
Which I have listened to back on the last episode of LJPCBM. Continue on.
happening this week. I did a little cyber sleuthing, and I tracked down direct lines to all except for one of the guys. We're talking email and social media links. It was pretty easy to do this because there's an Arthur Wikipedia with the names and some personal info on each person who played DW. The site is actually pretty robust and only a little creepy. Once I had all their names, I just looked them up one by one on Google, and I poked around until I found what I was looking for. I searched in sequential order, starting with the first person who played DW. Luckily, the guy I was looking for had a personal website with pictures of himself. When I found the site, I couldn't believe it, because for the first time, I was looking at a picture of another guy who played the voice of DW. Michael Callows, born in Montreal, Canada. He was
Wow.
cast in the role of DW in 1996. He did approximately 41 episodes of Arthur as DW. Want to hear what happened next? Stick around. I'll tell you the next part, right after a word from our sponsors.
Okay. Makes sense.
Finding DW is independently produced by me, Jason Szwimer. If you want to support the show, the best way you can do that is by checking out my Patreon.
Okay.
Supporters like you help me spend more time doing what I love, creating this podcast for you to enjoy.
Okay.
Plus, when you support this podcast, you'll gain access to exclusive bonus podcast episodes that feature full-length interviews with each person who appears on my show.
Okay.
Head to patreon.com/findingdw. That's FINDINGDW. No punctuation.
Okay.
There's also a link in the episode notes. Thank you very much. And now, back to the show.
Wow. Wow.
I talked to Deborah Toffin, the casting and voice director on the entire run of Arthur. She's won several Emmys for her work in children's programming.
I have them downstairs.
Wow.
She's worked on shows like Care Bears, Babar the Elephant, Beyblades, and of course, Arthur.
Wow. She's been working on Care Bears. Watch this remix. Beyblade, which I see as a kid, and Babar. Why did I know that? Especially Arthur, yeah. Deborah Toffin, wow. Let me check her real quick before we move on. Give me a moment, okay? I gotta mute this volume because I don't want to get copyrighted from YouTube. Get a new tab on who Deborah Toffin is, real quick. Yeah, I misspelled her name wrong. Okay. I mean, voice director, okay. Behind the voice actors, okay. Behind the voice actors, okay. Makes sense. She did. Oh, really? Peep in the Big White. I don't remember this as a kid. She did the 1998 version of Clifford. Wow. What else? I know we talked about Blade before. Oh, Alvis Missy Powell. Really? Okay, that makes more sense. Anyway. Total Drama Island, which if you watch is, Fairy Art Gamers for you. Anyway. Oh, wow. Skyland. I seen top more trio bits and pieces. Heron and his bucket full of dinosaurs. I've seen bits and pieces of that show as a kid. I'm not a huge fan of Max Movie anymore. Sorry. Brave Space, I seen that on Disney Channel. Great show. Marvin the Tap Dancing. I did not know he was doing that. She was doing this. Okay, I seen that on PBS. None of shows like this. Anyway, Rescue Horror Heroes. Never heard of the show. New Tales and the Crypt Keeper. Never heard of the show either. I seen George and Martha on HBO and Family. On like Jam. Eat with a Spoon. Never heard of it on other shows like this. The Dumb Bunnies. Never heard of it. Some shows I have not seen. Except for Babar, as he mentioned, But that's just me. Anyway. And Woober, okay, makes sense. 91 show. Adventure of Tintin, 1991, okay. Bubble, okay, makes sense. Anyway. All the Reddit titles and shows and movies, okay. Let's continue on. Shall we? See what we got for us.
Deborah played a very important part in casting the original cast of Arthur, as well as directing all of the voice performances. She also cast all the people who replaced each of the original voice actors, including casting me.
You know, when you find somebody that works, you just know. Arthur has had a life of its own. Like I've worked on a lot of great series, but Arthur, when I tell people that I'm the voice director and casting director of Arthur, it's just like I'm a celebrity, for God's sake. It's like really weird.
I've been asked this my entire life. Why is DW always played by a boy?
That's a good question. I think because DW is a rough and tumble little girl. She's a little brat, and we did explore female voices originally, but they were just too sweet for DW. They were just too nice for DW. So, when we opened the search for little boys, and plus, most of the boys that we have are between 8 and 10 or 11, really stretching it. So their voices haven't broke yet, and they are kind of girlish sounding, but a husky girlish sounding. So, when we explored that, young boys doing the voice, it just nailed it for us because it just looked like DW. So once you start, then you have to continue. So that's why there's been 8 boy DWs. We've actually tried to do girls with husky voices. We've come down to the wire where, when I'm doing the casting, we come down to maybe 5 selects, like 5 of our favorites.
Yes.
And we'll always, every so often, sneak a girl in there, thinking that she's got a husky voice. You could just tell, right? And there's just like, yeah, DW's a brat. She just lends herself to that, having that little rough voice,
I asked if she remembered Michael.
Hi, Michael. Like I said, he was the one we all followed after him. He was, I totally remember him very clearly.
Makes sense.
So he was the first person cast in the role, and the first former DW I've ever talked to. Here's what Michael sounded like as DW.
Hey,
Wow.
This is lettuce? What kind of a salad is this?
And here's what he sounds like now.
My name is Michael Callows, and I was the first person to play DW on Arthur. I had the part for the first 3 seasons from 1996 to 1999.
Can you still do the voice at all?
Probably not.
Last episode I told you all about how I actually got the part. When I auditioned, they were trying to match my voice to the people who played the role before me, but Michael auditioned with a kind of blank slate. I asked Deborah if she remembered what it was like casting the show for season 1.
Arthur just kind of snuck up on me. Like I wasn't really part of the development of it or anything like that. It just I was doing all the cartoons for Sinor at that point. So I was in Montreal. I was doing other cartoons there, and the next thing I know, they were saying there's this new cartoon called Arthur, and we'd like you to cast for it, and it was just like any other cartoon that you start. You don't really know. You don't expect it to have 25 years worth
Wow.
of work coming your way. So, and you're, really casting some very specific characters that have already been imagined because, Mark Brown was the creator of Arthur and the writer.
Yes, he is.
So he already had an image, already had a visual image and already knew these characters. So, casting for that type of show is interesting because although they haven't been developed yet, they already have been developed in stories in books.
Naturally, I had to ask Michael about what it was like auditioning for Arthur.
Yeah, it's been really interesting for me over the years thinking back to my childhood and noticing that a lot of it is kind of a blur. And I suspect it's because I just experienced so much so early on in my life, just being on so many different movie sets, playing different parts, everything from kids shows to sci-fi movies that are supposed to take place on another planet, and just this huge variety of experience that I think maybe was more than my little mind could make sense of and process and group for nice easy remembering. So it's not terribly clear to me looking back, but I certainly had conversations with my mom, who was with me every step of the way at all the auditions and all the filming, and she's filled in a lot of the gaps for me. So
Makes
I
sense.
remember she said that it was a rigorous audition process, and
Really?
Wow.
yeah, that they were looking at a lot of people, and at the time I had done different commercials and TV shows, but I was just getting into voice acting.
Wow.
And she said that apparently I was originally considered to potentially play Arthur even, and then they decided that they really wanted DW to be a tomboy and to have that kind of slightly more masculine voice, I suppose. And so they decided I'd be a good fit for that role.
Wow.
It's funny, I was asking my mom yesterday to help me prepare for this, to again fill in some of those blanks, and I said, Mom, like, surely I must have thought this is weird, right? I'm this little 9-year-old kid, and being told you're going to play a girl. Like, I must have thought that was crazy. And she said, no, you just kind of took it as another role to play, and you were really excited to be on TV and, work on this famous book that kids loved. And so apparently I didn't question it, weirdly enough.
I'd say we definitely have that in common. So then, in talking with your mom about it, I mean, I've got to wonder, do you come from a show business background? I mean, did your mom or did anyone in your family work in the business before you?
Yeah, so the story goes, again from my mom, that she signed me up for modeling as a baby because everyone said how cute I was and photogenic. And so I did that for a while, and
makes sense.
She said that one day apparently we were walking down the street and I saw filming happening in a park. And I said, "Wow, that looks awesome. Can I do that?" And she said, "All right, sure, let's talk to your modeling agency and see if they can get you, some other roles on TV or in movies." And so that's how it went. I started out I was on a McDonald's commercial, and then I got into more movie roles and then voice acting as well. So I really did a mix of everything, like radio ads and voice acting and movies, TV, modeling, all sorts of things over the years. And so I guess it was all just sparked by this noticing other people doing it and just wanting, I guess that's always been a trait I have, of wanting to try all sorts of things and just experiment.
I've mentioned a few times that I used to keep the DW thing a secret.
Mhm.
Well, I asked Michael what the people in his life thought about him playing the part.
What I can remember is that I've always kept it a secret until people find out about my acting in general.
Remember how I've always thought of being DW as just another after-school activity?
I think at the beginning, you know, I didn't have that concept yet of how actors are seen in our society. They're often idolized and you know, kind of seen as this special type of person or something. And so at the time, I think I just saw it as another fun activity or hobby. You know, one day I'll be on the movie set, the next day I'll be playing with my friends, and you know, it's all the same kind of thing.
Makes
so there was
sense.
really no need to tell someone, oh, by the way, I'm an actor, in the same way there's no need to tell someone, oh, I play hockey or, you know, whatever I did at the time.
You can't make this stuff up. It seems like we've had a very similar experience. There's something to that. Let's keep listening.
And so I don't think people really treated me differently at first, but then I do remember there was a shift over time once I started to become more famous, and there were articles about me in the newspaper, and I was on magazine covers, and I started to get more prominent lead roles in movies and things. I would actually get recognized out in public, and then at that point, I think that's when I had to start just really questioning sometimes. You know, does this person want to be my friend just to get close to a famous person? Or you know, do they really like me for who I am? And yeah, so there was some of that as kind of an early teen, and then later in life, it just became further back in time, so it just wasn't something I really talked about until people happened to Google me. While I was still acting, toward the tail end of that, I developed this idea that I wanted to be an actor, producer, director, and writer.
Wow.
It's funny, I must have told people that so many times that specific order of saying that is just lodged in my mind.
Okay.
I was obviously spent so much time in that world that I was struck by how interesting it would be to dive more deeply into all those roles and understand what it's like to create the script that I was reading off of, or to be behind the camera that you know, I was being filmed by. And so that was kind of my first ambition. If you asked me as a kid what I wanted to be when I grow up, I would say that. But then actually, even before I went into college, that started to shift into more of a focus on video games. And so that kind of became my first real career passion. And so that's what I ended up studying in college.
It seems like things sort of stopped around 99, around the time that you stopped playing DW. Did you actively walk away from acting? Can you tell me a bit about the decision to stop?
I actually have a pretty distinct memory one day of my mom telling me that the producers or the director or someone, I think there were probably a few people on the phone, wanted to give me a call and talk to me after we'd been on break for, I don't know, the summer or whatever it was, several months, or to just chat with me over the phone and see how my voice was doing and if I had gotten too old for the part. And I remember at least a part of me, probably a big part of me, wanted to hang on to the role because I had connections to the other cast members, and it was fun, and it was just a part of my identity. So I remember this desire to almost shift the pitch of my voice a little on that call to try to convince them that I was still okay.
Wow.
But I guess they saw through that because, yeah, they said, you know, we've really enjoyed working with you. You've been so great, but, you know, we just don't think it's going to work out anymore. So that was the end of Arthur.
Wow.
But I don't remember feeling terribly distraught about it. It was kind of like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And I think that was maybe one data point that went into my decision to quit acting overall. But the stronger motivation there was around school. I remember, you know,
Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, you know, age 13, 14, that was going into high school. And
Mhm.
I went to this fancy college prep high school, and they were really rigorous in terms of academics and wanting you to join clubs and sports teams and all that to make your resume impressive to get into a good college. And just looking at that course load and talking to some of the teachers, it was just really clear to me that it would be really hard to continue juggling going
Makes
to
sense.
auditions and missing school. And I'd also been feeling like it was hard over the years for me to be on sports teams, you know, to be able to attend all the practices and to make good friendships. So it really seemed to me like that was a clear, good point to shift my life going into high school, to be able to focus more on being a normal kid.
Which
Yes.
is exactly how I felt as I aged out of the role. Towards the end of my time as DW, I had felt like acting was taking away from my ability to grow up as a normal kid. And I wanted to have, you know, more normal experiences. I was sort of worried that if I would to continue growing up as like a child voice actor or child actor or whatever, that it would change me, and I would lose out on experiences that I wanted to have. It sounds like for you it was similar.
Yeah, 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 it's you know, the specific memories aren't clear to me of what I felt I was missing out on or losing, but there was a clear sense of, it was very obvious to me that my life was just quite a bit different from other people my age, and I'm sure there was some envy there, of seeing the kinds of deeper relationships that other kids were able to form with each other, and feeling like they had a sense of belonging. You know, we're kind of all these similar kids in it together, whereas for me there was often this sense of hierarchy, that I was told I'm better than other kids, even subconsciously, you know, not necessarily.
Yeah.
You know, just these kind of signs that we take in subconsciously of how people talk to us, how people treat us compared to how they treat other kids. And something about that probably didn't feel right to me.
So
Wow.
Michael and I both played DW until we aged out of the role, but strangely, when we reached that point, we both felt like it was time to move on from acting.
Yeah, I've had quite a winding career. I've always had many, many different interests. And yeah, in college, I had such trouble choosing a major. For a time, I was actually considering triple or quadrupling major, and I had a whole spreadsheet for how I could accomplish that. And I ultimately ended up, like I said, choosing interactive entertainment. Worked in the gaming industry for a while, and was really proud of some of the games I got to work on, like Uncharted, and then shifted into management consulting. And I guess I was drawn to that because it really seemed multidisciplinary. Like I could do a bit of everything and just, you know, work with different companies for several months at a time, helping them solve challenges. And I was able to bring my expertise in technology and my people skills and communication skills to facilitating group conversations and, you know, working with leaders. And then over time, where I found myself drawn to how can I help people go deeper and deeper and really get more vulnerable, more authentic, just mirroring my own journey, I learned so much about how good that feels.
Yeah.
What kind of aliveness is possible, that I had just been kind of pursuing these traditional things that our society tells us to, like prestige and make money, get promoted at work. And I was just increasingly realizing over time some hollowness in that. And I really wanted a deeper purpose. And as I discovered that and felt how amazing it felt, I wanted to help other people reach that same place.
These days, you seem to be working as a life coach or counselor. I imagine that's probably an oversimplification. I actually came across something interesting on your website, so I wanted to quote it to you and sort of get your perspective on it.
Sure.
After spending a lot of his adult life struggling with happiness and purpose, he devoted 3 years to pushing himself outside his comfort zone to make big changes in his life. So, can you tell me why you struggled with happiness and purpose?
Yeah. Yeah, this This is a big answer, so I'll try to get to some cliff notes of it for you here. I spent a lot of my adult life thinking about what happiness means, what fulfillment means, who I am, who I want to be. And I think all of us ask ourselves those questions in our 20s and 30s, as we're deciding what career we want to do and what we want to do with our lives, really. So that's a natural part of growing up, certainly. And I suspect in my case that was compounded by my childhood in a number of ways. In one way, as I said, I missed out on some typical experiences of growing up. And I had to mature in certain ways more quickly than other kids, I'm sure, and act like a professional, act like an adult. So there might have been some overly accelerated development of myself that maybe later on I had to catch up on and rediscover who I really am deep down. And even just the process of acting so much as a kid, I'm sure, playing different roles, really trying to get inside the head of different characters. I'm sure that must have confused my poor little brain about who I actually am. And then there's that whole aspect as well about the amount of praise I received, how often I was told I'm special and I can do anything, and I've made these incredible accomplishments so early in life. If you looked at my resume when I was 10 years old and then 15 years old and 20 years old, I accomplished so much so early on, and I was given so many amazing opportunities and so much privilege that helped form my mindset as well about kind of how I am in the world, how the world is organized. And so I think later in life, I struggled a bit to figure out, wait, what is the source of happiness and fulfillment? If you don't have parents and directors and reporters telling you you're special, telling you you're amazing, where does that validation come from?
Right.
And what is a normal level of validation to expect?
Yes.
When people find out I was DW, I sometimes wonder if I'll ever be known for anything else. Will I ever achieve anything more notable or exciting than I did when I was 10? I asked Michael about that, and about how he feels when people find out or ask him about it all these years later.
There's absolutely something that happens when people find out. There was one time I can remember in high school, maybe 9th grade, and we were in computer class. I have no idea how they do things nowadays. This ages me probably, but we were learning typing and like basic computer skills.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so there were just, 30 of us or whatever in this room, all on the computers. And it's quiet, and then suddenly I just hear someone say something like, "What?
Wow.
Oh my God." And then they just start whispering to people next to them and people next to them, and eventually the whole room is suddenly, I don't know if it was Google at the time or Yahoo or whatever, but searching Michael Callows, and they found my IMDb, or there was another fan site, and they were all just shocked, and I was just sitting there frozen in this room of people, so excited. And so I think it's always been positive, and it's I think I've gone on maybe a bit of a similar journey to you, where for a while I was kind of struggling with my identity, like, well, I don't want that to overshadow who I am now. I'm a very different person. I want you to see me for the accomplishments I'm proud of that I've made recently, not who I was 20 years ago.
Exactly.
And then most recently, I think over the past really just year or so, I've embraced it a little more as part of my journey toward being a coach and a counselor and all that, and kind of reframing the way that I want to show up in the world as serving others and helping others transform, and in that way wanting to welcome my whole self, all these parts of me that have shaped me, and recognizing that if I can name something about myself that seems impressive to someone else, that might help them hear my other messages better, kind of get their attention. So if I tell them that I, did these impressive things, it's not to brag, but it's to just kind of help them get excited so that maybe they're interested in hearing more, and then I can help them.
Ultimately, one of the biggest differences between Michael and I is that he seems to be very much at peace with his decision to move on from the world of TV and movies. Whereas for me, it's a world I still very much want to be in. Did playing DW change you?
Yeah, I've always approached the question of, would you go back in time and change anything about your life? By thinking that every experience I've had in my life has shaped me and made me who I am today. And, looking back, I think, especially with where I am in the world today and what the kind of work that I'm doing, I really appreciate that Arthur was on PBS and, it was all about helping kids develop emotional and social skills and all that, and getting to meet Mr. Rogers, and
Wow.
just thinking about the amazing speech that he gave to the Senate
Makes
in
sense.
1969 or so, like advocating for funding for PBS. And you should watch it on YouTube if you haven't seen it. It's just amazing how he talks
Which,
about.
by the way, I have saw the fundings from National Educational Television, which is before it was PBS in the time, and it was great. Before I saw not just YouTube, but also another website called American Archive Public Broadcasting.org, and it was great. So there you go. It's a great fan to watch those on the websites besides Arthur and PBS NewsHour. I was just watching DVB at the time. I was only 5, but there you go. If you haven't checked my Elephant Club documentary for the past 15 years, go check it out. Continue on.
It's about the preciousness of teaching these emotional skills to kids in a way that will resonate with them.
Here's a clip from that Mr. Rogers speech.
And I feel that if we in public television can make it clear that feelings are mentionable and manageable, we will have done a great service for mental health.
And I think it's a privilege that I was able to be part of a show that taught kids about the world and about themselves in a really healthy way.
Even though Arthur is a show that sort of teaches these important values and sort of, a love of learning and a love of empathy to kids, I'm wondering if being on the show or being a child actor in general kind of takes some of that away. And maybe you and I, in a way, have been spending energy as adults trying to regain those, trying to have those lessons taught to us again in a way that our adult brains can understand.
Yes.
But I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm just wondering if that resonates.
It does. Again, looking at my acting career and hearing horror stories as an adult of what some child actors went through, I feel very, very lucky that I don't have any really negative experiences that I can recall. I mean, there were the sad times when I didn't get a role that I wanted, or when I had to miss an interesting day at school or a sports practice to go to auditions or filming or whatever it was. But there were no clear negatives in that sense of my career, other than some of the things I touched on earlier around potentially missing out on some of the development around social skills and as a counselor and coach now and having studied psychology a lot, it is clear to me that there were a couple of negative impacts in that way, in that even as an adult, I still struggle sometimes with social situations of kind of wondering, wait, do I belong here? What is kind of the normal, proper way to approach someone? To these kind of basic social skills that I think kids were naturally developing in a natural way that I missed out on, and I've had to rediscover as an adult, like you said.
I asked Deborah what she thought it was that made Arthur so special.
There wasn't really anything else like that before, where it was like a family, the Simpsons, of course, but for, daytime.
Yeah.
It was a real kind of family sitcom where the characters were interesting, and there was the bullies and the smart kid and the not so smart kid like Binky, and it just it was it was a neighborhood. It was a neighborhood of kids, and kids that watched it could relate to it because there was always I think somebody in that series that they could relate to.
Wow.
Since starting on this journey, I've realized something. I think all of us grown-ups need some of those lessons Arthur teaches kids. Empathy, compassion, listening to others. Let's try to remember that the world is a big neighborhood. Let's be nicer to each other.
Yes.
I think we all need that more than we think we do. I can't believe I actually interviewed Michael Callows. This is a pretty big step. What started as a funny mission to interview the other guys who played DW is actually happening. I still can't get over how my story and Michael's stories are both so similar. Like how he felt like playing DW was an after-school activity, or that he would keep it a secret. When he said those things, it felt like he was taking them right out of my brain and saying them back to me. The fact that his experiences drove him to want to help others with finding their identity, it's all too perfect. And
makes sense.
talking to him as the first guy to play DW was amazing. He was so insightful and helpful with helping me clarify why I'm doing this in the first place.
Yes.
I hadn't thought about it as succinctly, but trying to move on from having played DW could otherwise be called my journey to discover my identity beyond DW. My point is, this feels significant. I've seen that through hard work and introspection, Michael feels fulfilled with his purpose in life, serving others. Thanks to his example, now more than ever, I feel like I can achieve my goals too. I've got big dreams of making it in show business, and this podcast is part of my journey to get there.
Yes.
So thanks so much for listening. There's a lot more to this story to go. I've still got to track down and talk to a lot more DWs. And I'm just so excited for you to come along with me on this journey. So thanks again for listening. I really hope you're enjoying this and that you're having as much fun with it as I am making it. All right, see you next time.
So that was episode 2 of Find DW. The first DW, Michael Callows. What do I think about this episode? I think it was amazing. I would like to say this was a successful episode overall. And the second episode of the podcast. And that was the LJPCBM episode number 923. Hope you enjoy it. Stay tuned for the next one. It's going to be LJPCBM episode number 924. Find DW episode 3. Why is DW written so well? Excuse me. Till next time, Sue Johnson, bye, peace out, baby. We can watch the reaction, guys, be so. Till Wednesday out. See ya.
Given unto me this life I'll never take for granted, and given all the time I failed to really understand it, I never sought to meet the maker of reality. life, that which is always happening, but I try all the time. Why was I the one to see things as I do under the moonlight and the sun? Perception is the question, and the giver holds the key.